All right, let's kick this off, huh? We've got an awesome panelist of fractional executives, and I'll tell you, in planning webinars, this one, you guys, I've been planning longer than any other that I do. And part of that is making sure that we got the right mix of people here. And Jen, you and I've got a lot of history. Eric and I know each other a little more recently, and Damian as well. But as I get to know all of you really well, I am so happy referring when I run into somebody, like I just told the story of our new client that we launched this month, that is pulling his hair out. And as we continue to create growth, his life's going to be more complex. And so he needs services like yours. Again, thank you to my panelists, Damian Lo Basso. Damian's firm is my RIA CFO. He's a fractional CFO for RIAs and independent advisors. And a ton of history. Damian will let you go into that a little bit. Jen Goldman, my virtual COO, is a fractional chief operating officer. Huge importance as your firm continues to grow, making sure that you've got the right personal structure underneath that. And then Eric Stein. Eric is East Bay Investment Services. So he helps you with outsource all of your investment research, and we got some pros. So you guys, thank you so much for being here. Jenna, why don't we start with you? I'll give you that light introduction, but tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Sure, absolutely. And I'm so psyched to be with you guys, as you all know. So Jen Goldman, I started in the business as a financial advisor in my early 20s. Don't judge me. I was at a wirehouse. I wanted the best training possible and kept evolving to then start wearing multiple hats. So for any of you that are wearing both the founder and bringing in the business hat and also running the business hat, I've been there, done it. And then in the wonderful year of 2007, right before the crash, started consulting businesses to scale them. So we're all things operations. We get it. And you could call us like second in command until you grow big enough to hire your own.
That's awesome. Damian, you want to jump in there?
Absolutely, Charlie. And thank you for hosting. Jen and Eric, it's great to be on the panel with you guys. And obviously, we know each other for a long time. So this is actually my second iteration of an outsourced fractional CFO firm. The first being Compass CFO Solutions back in 2018 was founded. But my career started off a little bit outside of the wealth management industry. I was an M&A investment banker for several years before my first foray into wealth management when I was the head of finance and accounting at Dynasty Financial Partners. Left Dynasty, founded Compass, and when I sold my interest in Compass, I had the amazing opportunity to be the internal CFO of a $5 billion and then ultimately a $20+ billion RIA, which I think in many ways is important because to be able to live within the same walls as my clients and understand a lot of the challenges that they're facing, because my experience isn't simply as a professional. It is at that table. It is working alongside many of them as the in-house CFO. It gives me a bit of nice perspective and allows me to think strategically and get ahead of a lot of their problems. But my RIA CFO officially has been in operations for quite some time. This more full-scale iteration is really just within the last year.
Awesome. Thanks, man. And Eric, the spotlight is yours.
Yeah, again, thanks, Charlie, for hosting this. I'll say I'm here representing East Bay Investment Solutions, but I've got two other colleagues that are super important to everything that we do, and Mario Nardone and Alex Klusner. We are a team and we do everything together in support of our clients. My career really started, I was telling you before, Charlie, in commercial banking, not even in the investment world. Fast forward several years, I found myself at Goldman Sachs in New York working on risk management, portfolio construction, and all the fun stuff during the tech bubble and those time periods, Y2K, all the fun things happening then. Fast forward several years, I was working as the senior investment professional of a national multi-billion-dollar RIA. I loved what I did, but I wanted to have more of a direct impact. And when I met Mario back in 2018, we just decided that building out the fractional CIO framework for advisors that need support was really something that we had passion about and saw a need. And we've been growing it together with Alex since, and just enjoyed the wonderful community that we built. And I'm looking at the participants, many of our communities in this list. So appreciate everybody attending.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. My name is Charlie Van Derven. I got started in this industry building websites for the wirehouses, I think in 1998, which dates me a little bit. I am now fractional CMO, working mostly with RIAs, but also we have some independent advisors, independent broker-dealer advisors under our umbrella as well. A lot has changed since 1998 in this marketing world, right? We saw the evolution of email marketing, and of course, social media has been crazy. So in 2013, I was working for a firm that a lot of you would recognize the name of. I'll leave it out of it, but it was one of these canned content firms, if you will, like templated websites, canned content. Everybody looks the same, smells the same. And of course, compliance loves that, but we saw a gap, right? They've all got differentiators. They're independent. They certainly bring different strengths to the table. So in 2013, I launched Social Advisors, really to help bring advisors into content marketing, give themselves their own voice. And one of the things that I've run into probably 3, 4 years ago was, and a lot of this is with AI, excuse me, the vendors, and I'm sure you guys see it on your side too, the vendors in marketing in this industry, in every industry, has absolutely exploded. There's very little barrier to entry. And so I see a lot of advisors that kind of fall into what I call the Frankenstein effect, where maybe they're buying leads in one place and they're running CRM somewhere else, and they're generating a newsletter from someone else by running a seminar service here. And there's so many options. It became obvious that advisors just didn't even really have the wherewithal to vet them all. And so now you're running 10 different strategies. And so the fractional role made a lot of sense to bring all that so that there's a strategic intent behind everything that they do. And anyway, so yeah, that's where social advisors has evolved into that fractional CMO role above everything else. Yeah, thanks you guys. Good intros. So where I want to start is as we watch this migration to independence that we've been watching happen for the last 10, 15 years, maybe, I've seen a lot of people move out of the big firms, join an independent broker dealer, or go RIA directly, and really don't even know what the complexity is behind running the business where a firm supported all of that for them prior. So just to list off a couple of things, when you become your sole proprietor, right, and maybe you bring a small team with you, your assistant, whatever that may be, you wear several hats: marketing, right? Finance, operations, investments, technology, hiring, client service. Some of you
Compliance.
vacuuming floors, fixing printers, right? It's crazy what happens when you step away from that kind of quota-driven and product-driven environment and into an environment that's actually a more pure client relationship, but now you own a business. And so as your growth, more complexity becomes part of your business as well. So Jen, with that, I want to start with you. Where do you typically see operational bottlenecks appear as firms make that breakaway or get into a growth mode?
Yeah. The bottlenecks is called this morning when is usually with the founder owner. Learning how to let go, how to delegate with a sense of still quality, service, and control or assurance. So that usually is the first bottleneck on the system. And then it's that idea of making that leap of faith and investing in people and investing in systems. So that becomes the next bottleneck.
Yeah. That's
I'd love to say it's so many other things, but listen, I do come from the industry, and this industry is prevalent of reoccurring revenue. So it's usually not revenue. They feel it is, but when you get down to it, it's this idea of letting go a little bit, giving it to someone else.
It's hard to do, huh?
Yeah, it's really hard. It's like a muscle. If you don't use it for a while, it just atrophies, right?
Yeah.
And if you become part of a bigger firm where you're right, everything's done for you and the guardrails are there and all the people, it's like the wizard behind the curtains. And the bigger firms, the wizards are literally multiple wizards behind the curtain, and you don't ever see it. That's the point, is you're not supposed to see it. When I was a Smith Barney, no, I didn't see anything. I was just supposed to go out and sell and serve. And that's where I see.
Oh. All right, Eric, let me lob a question at you. How often do you see advisors pulled too deeply into investment oversight instead of the most important thing they should be doing, and that's managing client relationships?
Hopefully they've hired us so they don't get it too deeply into the investment oversight component. So let's start there.
Yeah.
But I think what we find is that some of the prospective clients that we'll talk to, sometimes they don't even realize how much they're actually doing in the investment function in terms of taking on wholesaler calls. Or even more recently, we've gotten a lot of questions about SpaceX IPO. Is it going to be in these indices? Is it going to be in the fund I own? How can I tell? Some advisors want to own it and their clients want to own it. Some don't. So what do I do about that? That can take you down a tremendous rabbit hole depending upon how much time you want to spend on that. With us, we can help you through that. Going back to what Jen was saying in terms of having that muscle, a lot of what we're doing is just creating structure, it's creating discipline. It's not only just taking the heavy load off of your plate, but it's providing that structure and discipline so that you have it and you know it's there. You can focus on, as you said, Charlie, the clients, growing your business, all of the things that are more important to you than getting into all the investment details that are there, have to be thought through, but don't necessarily have the time as a business owner to go into all of that.
Yeah, valuable time savings. Thanks, Eric. Damian, as a CFO, what are some of the hidden costs that owners who think, hey, by managing this or by managing that, I'm saving on hiring somebody or hiring a fractional to help with that? What are some of the hidden costs you see when owners stay involved in everything?
I oftentimes look at it as what is the cost of not handling situations the right way? And advisors, many times, and let me be clear, founders in general, right? We're talking specifically about advisors, but founders in general, they have this bootstrap mentality at the onset, right? I have a cousin who does the books. She'll do them whenever she gets to it, or I'm going to use Claude for AI generated leads, whatever it might be. And then when I stabilize, then I'll seek the help of the professionals. And I think that the re-education in many respects is those resources are there from the beginning, are probably significantly more cost effective than anyone thinks. And getting to that point of optimization will get cut in half if you're utilizing the subject matter experts at the onset. When I'm looking at things and when I'm fortunate enough to catch advisors as they're transitioning or pre-transition, the dialogue becomes very simple, right? Because sure, you might be saving $10,000 or $20,000 a year, and not using a fractional CFO, but that person's not helping you with your cash flow analysis. They're not helping you think through when the appropriate time to hire or to bring in new systems is. They're not helping you evaluate M&A opportunities, right? And that has a value that far exceeds the cost that you're saving in bootstrapping, right? And again, as a founder myself, Jen made the comment earlier, we get it. There are still some things on my plate that shouldn't be. And it's that founder's folly that we all fall into. But at the end of the day, and Charlie, you had said that things are different from 1998 than they are from today.
A little bit.
I still live in the world that the transition to independence in this RIA world is still only in the second or third inning.
Yeah.
So it doesn't surprise me that we're now seeing this explosion of strategic partners, of different vendors, because mature industries, airlines, auto, whatever it is, they're there, right? To become a new entrant in that market is nearly impossible. But for our world, we're now only seeing international investment coming in. We're now seeing but Eric, you would be able to speak more about this than I would, but we're seeing all this interest from people that had no interest even 5 years ago, right? So now everyone's really just starting to catch on. And that is one thing, competition's good, right? But you're seeing a lot of individuals that don't have the subject matter expertise that I think a lot of people on this panel do.
Yeah. I want to kind of couple on something you said early, Damian. By bootstrapping and by trying to do everything, you're actually, you think you're saving some money, but you're slowing down progress completely. So we'll walk into a new firm, for example, and they've been sharing canned content, which has nothing to do with their brand. It's not targeted towards any one particular audience that they're trying to grow around, or they're buying general leads that are being sold to 4, 5, 6 other advisors. And frankly, because they're bootstrapping, they don't even have the time to get to those leads. And it's that type of kind of piecemeal mentality that I think really slows the whole ship down.
I have to say, Charlie, don't you get to have a luxury, a little bit of metrics of opportunity loss. Like when you talk to owners all the time and they're like, my time and this, and I'm like, yeah, but you don't know what kind of came to your door, but didn't turn the knob. And so from a marketing aspect, you get to see that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's so important for them.
We see it a lot with websites. So like an outdated website, right? If someone's referred to you, assume they're referred to 2 or 3 other advisors. And if they're just doing their diligence and you don't have a presence and your website is built in 2017 or something like that, the right website doesn't necessarily close a deal. The wrong website absolutely kicks you out of that process as they're vetting others, right? So the impression that you leave in that regard, yeah, Jen, I can look like analytics on a website, what they hit on the website, and we're making some guesses, right? But if 50 people hit this page on your website and you didn't get a single booking, there's a problem there, right? So yeah, bootstrapping or think that old stuff is good enough. Often that's costing you time and money, right?
And I think what we're all hitting at is just the word intention. Are we growing by default or are we growing with the intention of putting all of these components together? Because advisors are doing marketing, they're doing the CFO work, they're doing the investment work, they're focused on ops. But can they be experts in all of these components, or can they find value in bringing in
Yeah.
components to help them grow faster and without all of the stress of having to do it alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to piggyback on that and say we always think about growth externally, but I want to be clear. It's also about your talent. Like we just worked with a firm that the reason they got the valuation they got is because of their talent. It was certainly other factors, right? But most importantly was this acquisition was going to be like this tight ship going somewhere else that was going to operate without a lot of oversight and cleanup. And so, again, whether you're doing it for independency, which of course I believe in, right? Or succession, you have kids growing up and someday you hope they want to jump into the business, whatever the reason, I think we have to focus on growth internally as much as we focus externally. And that's the ROI or ROE of working with the fractionals, the non-emotional creatures that can look at it with intent and deliberation and lay out, here's the things that need to happen. This is the order to get the right flow, but for the right reasons.
Yeah. And also
I
trying
tend to see, oh, sorry, Charlie, go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, Damian. All yours.
No, I was going to say quickly, I tend to see these issues fall into three different buckets. Workflows and items that need to get done by advisors and they know how to do it and they're willing to do it. Items that need to get done and an advisor knows it, but they don't have the time or the capacity to do it. And then the things that advisors don't know need to get done, right? So there tends to be a natural default to that first one, right? Client interaction, prospecting. Everyone knows that you need to have books and records, right? Everyone needs to know that you have to have proper logs and oversight over your investments and be able to rationalize it and so on. And then, but they don't maybe have the capacity to create those logs, or maybe only when the SEC comes knocking or the IRS comes knocking, right? And then that last bucket is the scary one, right? It's what am I not doing? And I have no intention of doing it simply because I don't know it needs to get done, right? And that's the area where advisors tend to get tripped up the most. And I think that as we're collectively talking about this, it's the question that needs to get asked is who can keep eyes on this so that I don't have to, and I'm meeting my fiduciary responsibilities as a registered advisor and so on.
Yeah. Great point.
And nobody's talking about this in the media. Nobody wants to air their quote dirty laundry out there, right? But if you go and you're in a good peer group or talking to others, say, if you could go back in time and do things differently, I think the things they would mention are the things that we're talking about today. I would have put this structure in place. I would have put non-emotional strategists into my team to help me see ahead and avoid costly missteps. But nobody talks about that. That's not what's going to hit the news stream.
And frankly, it might not be something they want to portray externally at all. Yeah. So you guys, we got 5 talking points. And I'm watching the clock because we could probably do a webinar on each one of these talking points. So I'm going to move us along a little bit and encourage you again, if you're hanging out with us, if you've got questions or comments, please put it in the chat and we'll monitor that and get to those questions as we go. So let's move on to point number 2. Eric, we're going to start with you this time. So really, I want to talk about the difference between what are referred to as vendors versus strategic partners. Right? There's a lot of vendors in this industry. In fact, let me share my screen real quick before, and if you guys have anything to share, I'm going to set it up. This will take me 1 second. I should have done this before we got started, but there we go. So if you have anything to share, go ahead and do it. But I want to share this. I don't know. Most people have seen this, I think. This is Michael Kitsis's like vendor map. I don't know if he advisor service provider map. So, like I said earlier, we started in 2013. This is actually the first year we hit this map, right? So we're quite a few years in. We got 2 mentions, which is really great, but it's the first year we hit. So while this looks like a lot of vendors in the industry, right? Imagine there's probably 5 or 10 times this that haven't even made this map yet. So there's a lot of vendors out there. Eric, let me ask you, how do advisors maybe it's a little misplaced, but that's okay. How do advisors typically integrate your services, fractional CIO, with client experience? What does that look like for them?
Sure. Before I go into that, Charlie, I'll say congratulations on making that list. I know that East Bay is also on that list, and we're super
I
proud
saw that.
to be on
Yeah,
there too.
I saw that. Congrats.
From our perspective, if we think about a vendor, you're thinking about, to us, it's at least more transactional. It's you do something, we pay you, and that's it. You're just a service provider very quickly. You're not really part of the team. I'll speak for East Bay for a second. We really truly do want to be an extension of our client's team to the point where, following the correct compliance rules, we can sit on your website. We can be in your client and prospect calls. We can participate with you in client events. So we truly do, we want to be a part of your team. Ultimately, as the advisor, the owner, you still have discretion, you still have ownership over decisions. You just don't have to do all the heavy lifting. And that's really where we come in. So if you think about the largest RIAs that are out there, many of them have a CIO or an investment team. We are essentially replacing that function for smaller firms that don't have the need or desire to have a full-time CIO.
Yeah, that's awesome. We've gone so far with many of our relationships to actually sit on the executive committee, right? So we're meeting with whatever other executives exist within the firm, and that I feel is very important for our role within those firms. Damian, let's see. Here we go. There's my question for you. Many advisors think that CFO equals bookkeeping or taxes. How do you explain the difference in your strategic role?
I think it's relatively easy. The bookkeeping component is important, right? And when we think about the breadth of the service providers in this space, I think the overwhelming majority of them sit in that bucket, right? It's being able to reconcile transactions on QuickBooks, present financials in whatever fashion, and in some ways it ends there, right? But to advisors, really the value and the importance comes with that next step, right? Because you're holding these numbers, you're looking at it, okay, we were profitable or we have cash in the bank, but what are you doing with that information, right? How is that information dictating the next 12 months, the next 5 years, the next 10 years? How is it impacting your strategic hiring? How is it impacting your compensation plans for your team, right? Because advisors, in my experience, a lot of them operate based on feel, right? It's my employees are used to a 20% bonus, and so we're just going to pay them a 20% bonus. But do your numbers allow that? How does that impact your ability to execute on your strategic plan next year, right? Do you even have capacity to execute on any of them? And so the difference is, and this is the way I view my own business, the bread and butter, which is the bookkeeping, bill payment, payroll administration, expense management. That's the foundation of the relationship. The strategic part doesn't work and can't happen if that piece isn't done and done well. Then comes the strategic part, right? Which is dissecting the numbers, being able to put action plans in place with KPIs to evaluate on a monthly or more frequent, less frequent basis, however the relationship is with the client. M&A is the sexiest word in our space now, right? Everybody in some capacity is involved in M&A, whether it's as a buyer or they're just putting feelers out as to sell their business because multiples are so crazy. And I know we're going to talk on this in the next topic, but if your books and your financial house isn't in order, you could be running a great firm, but your valuation just off of day one is going to take a hit, right? So that cost of not having things done properly, it can, in some instances, cost you millions, right? And so it's a trickle-down effect, and I know we'll talk about it in a couple minutes, but yeah, it's that delegation between bread and butter, foundational work like bookkeeping, and then the strategic work that really empowers the CEO or the founders of the firm to actually take action with that information.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I think to your point, I think it is about the strategic intent. From a marketing perspective, there's a lot of people to sell you a marketing service, right? Investment and operations and fractional CFO as well. It is about being part of overall strategy and direction, not just providing a one-off service. So, all right, Jen, how do you position yourself differently from a traditional consultant or an outsourced operations person?
One, we say we're not long-term. We're there to scale and step away and teach while we're doing it. So
Yeah.
that's one thing that makes us a little different, actually a lot different. Two, I would say, going back, we're constellation thinkers here. So what do I mean by that? So in operations, you've got to think if you're changing a process that changes people's roles and responsibilities, right? If you're changing somebody's roles and responsibilities, that should change their compensation. So that goes to fine. Like all of these things touch on different parts of the business. So I think the difference for an outside consultant is we have to be constellation thinkers because otherwise we're not scaling the business in a way that it won't crumble, right? Because that's the idea, is making a stronger house. So I think that's how we position ourselves that way. The differentiator, because I feel for a lot of advisors that go out and vet, and it's exhausting sometimes. They'll get an advisor that or ops person that just does process work, or just does recruiting work, or just does whatever. And
Yeah.
I think our differentiators, we think of the whole picture.
Yeah, I love that. And having shared some clients with you, it works. It's great. So if it's a shorter term relationship, it's a bad time for my voice to go, you guys. If it's a shorter term relationship, what is that? If it's not your entire service offering
Yeah.
after that year or 2 years or whatever that initial term is, what does that relationship look like upon your exit? Is there a monthly check-in? How do they keep up with it, right? So
Yeah, they can always do tune-ups. And I think it's very different than Eric and Damian. You should be there long term. That's my opinion. That's what we pitch. For us, you can always come back and do check-ins. We do hear back from those that have rose up the ranks, whether it's the CEO or the COO or the COS, but use jargon for the chief of staff, to just check in. And there's mastermind groups. I always believe all of us as leaders, whether you're an owner or not, should be a part of a peer group where you're talking and you're kibitzing about what's going and what's not going well and helping each other out. So that's usually how they come and swing back around. But we always say you got to graduate. You're going to scale. You have to scale too. This isn't just about the business, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about emotional relief. How many advisors have you guys spoken with that are like, I use the example of my client that was at 9 o'clock this morning, our weekly call. And he was about 3 minutes late to the call, which was no problem, right? And he texted me to let me know he was going to be. But part of that was all the family responsibility. He was running kids around this morning. We talk about burnout a lot. I talked to an advisor that tracked his hours last week, 82 hours in office. What? And I know there's this culture, especially people who come up through Wall Street, right? And that when Eric, you and I were chatting about it earlier, about your day starts at 8 a.m. and at 10 p.m. you take the town car home to sleep for 4 hours so that you can be back at the office again, right? So that mentality, when you translate it to a 40 or 50-year-old, it's not good for the 20 or somethings either. But the burnout is real, right? And so we're talking about all these hats that an advisor has to wear. So Damian, let me start with you on this one. I don't know if I want to find the question that's right for this topic, Damian. So let me ask this, and I don't know how it may not fit perfectly into our emotional, but we'll get around to it. What risks exist when firms lack financial visibility? I don't know. We'll bring that home somehow.
Sure. I think I'm supposed to be, you could ask me anything and I'm sure I'll find an answer.
Yeah.
The risks are, again, you'll notice this trend where I tend to put everything in a binary or buckets. I think that's just the accounting mentality within me, but there's immediate term and reactive risk, and then there's longer term and you're proactively doing risk adjustment. In the first bucket, simplest case is you're getting audited, right? And ever since COVID, the SEC has changed a lot of their methodology in terms of they want to hit advisors within their first 10 months. It's easier for them because there's not a lot to review. That's the fear of God and the advisors. Hey, we're here. Just remember we're here. And they can churn out more, especially with the explosion in our spaces, as we mentioned earlier. So not having baseline financials, and I say auditable, we're not necessarily required to be auditable, but the way that they ask questions, they are basically auditable, is a minimum. And you're attesting to that in your registrations, right? Not only are you going to act as a fiduciary in terms of your investment decisions and so on, but also if your firm is insolvent, you can't manage your clients at all, right? So you're not really acting as a fiduciary for them in that regard either. Risk of a regulatory or tax body auditing you is number one. The second is, and it's that concept of what is the cost of not doing things the right way, right? It's what actions are more critical, or are you not allowing yourself to operate on or to execute on because of an uninformed decision that you made? And as by way of example, it's like this butterfly effect, right? My team is at capacity, I need to make a hire. Okay. Without looking at any information or the data or anything, you go out, you bring on a person without realizing, okay, now this person's on board, there might be some relief for the team, but now I can't execute on A, B, C, or D that equally as critical because I didn't think through the timing of the cash flow. I didn't think through an appropriate compensation structure that worked both for the new employee and for the firm. I didn't think through all the ancillary costs that come into play when bringing on someone new, right? The technology, healthcare, new equipment, sending them to conferences, different training opportunities, right? The list becomes quite that gross wage number all of a sudden becomes a much larger number when that new person's there. And being able to forecast out and then maybe, think through, when do we do this? How do we do this? And you had talked about relief. That is where relief comes from, right? It's the power of knowing that the decisions that you're making are rooted in data as opposed to feel, which again, most advisors have a tremendous feel, right? That is a fact. But I think the ones that supplement it with evidence-based data are the ones that are strategically better aligned for either not necessarily longer term growth, but certainly a slower, shorter time frame to reach their ultimate goal.
Thanks for bringing that home, man.
No worries. Told you I can always bring it full circle.
Jen, I got a two-parter for you.
Go for it.
What operational issues create the most stress for advisory firm owners?
Managing people.
I can attest to that as a business owner who has managed a fairly sizable team in the past. Yes. No.
I think we know people and providers, because those are people in the end, right? We're having relationships. And let's tie it back to finance. It's your biggest line item.
For sure.
And deep down, we know we should care for those. We should care for the people. We should manage them well. We should lead well, like all those different things. And unfortunately, to be fair, nobody's going to management school. I love leadership coaches, but leadership and management are a little bit different. I love, there's so much out there. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Okay, the second part of that, what changes emotionally once firms begin operating with more structure?
Oh, First of all, I use ROE. So Damian might go for ROI. I go for the return on energy, the energy boost. When you're operating with a sense of sanity and structure, and if you're fortunate enough, and I'd like to think our firms are, that everybody has clear roles of authority, clear lines of responsibility, very open to the fact that things are fluid and changing with AI or not AI or new humans added, the energy level is great. And we always say to firms, when you're operating in that great space, you grow so much more easily. And then you turn around and look at your numbers and you're like, how did that happen? If you're happy, everybody else is happy. If they're happy, people want to work with you because we all want to be around happy people. It's the old adage still applies.
There are two words.
Yeah.
There are two words that come up in so many of my conversations. It's culture and institutionalization, right? And I think a lot of people feel like they conflict.
Yes.
But when done correctly, they don't have to, right? Because advisors will often say, because my whole job is to institutionalize. It could be a single person, solopreneur, or it could be 100 or multi-hundred. I have both sides clients, right? And the goal is to institutionalize the practice as much as possible, right? Because when it's institutionalized, it's more efficient. It's running on a more cost effectively. But advisors and founders in general have this fear that their culture that drove them to independence in the first place is going to change or disappear entirely when institutionalization is implemented. And that's not true, right? Because your 5-person, very family feel firm won't overnight become the next Merrill Lynch, right? But the small incremental steps needed to increase work-life balance, profitability, the value creation for clients, that is institutionalization. And I think that the more that the broader firm buys into that, it actually has the inverse effect, and it creates a tighter culture because now you have everyone rowing in the same direction. You have everyone with a common goal in mind, and that is the opposite of just a bunch of fractional advisors or employees of a large wirehouse that are just doing their own thing, right? And so it goes back to being very intentional with the way that you're institutionalizing the firm to both tighten culture and create total alignment and also increase profitability and everything that comes with it.
And what I would add too is, well, I think what we all do is we provide our clients with clarity in what they're doing. And that clarity creates confidence. And that confidence is palpable to what they're doing, the people that they're meeting with, and they can see they've got everything buttoned up. They know what they're doing. They've got a team behind them, and that is very valuable to them.
Yeah, for sure. Eric, as an extension of that, what are some examples when folks work with East Bay of gaining time back along the emotional lines of wearing too many hats and being spread too thin? When they engage your firm, how do they alleviate that and gain more time, whether that's for themselves, for team, for client relationships? What does that look like?
That could take a number of different ways. I'd say just on a day-to-day basis, just as an example, if you have a prospective client coming in and you want to do an analysis of their client's current portfolio versus what you would offer them, we can do that for you. You don't have to do that yourself. We give you talking points. We provide our clients with ongoing and regular collateral that they can share and private label. So it's those kinds of things that writing quarterly collateral, even though it's quarterly, takes several hours to do. And if you're doing that yourself, what are the topics I'm writing about? How do I want to position this? What does it mean? That all takes a significant amount of time, whether you're leveraging AI to do it or not, it still takes time. So all of those components, taking wholesaler calls, digging into alternative investments, figuring out whether SpaceX is going to be part of your portfolio or not, all of the client questions that come in on a regular basis, those consume a significant amount of advisors' time that we can, again, take that heavy lifting off. We'll always give you the answer and you can decide how you want to share that with your clients. And again, advisors always own the decision process at the end of the day when they work with us. But again, just alleviating that time, it's not only capacity for them to focus on what they want, but going back to the original part of the question, it's emotional relief, knowing they don't have to do everything themselves.
Yeah, love it. All right, let's return to something we talked a little bit about early, and that is why is fractional leadership growing so quickly in financial services? Then we'll start with you this time.
Why?
Simply put, why are firms more open to a fractional operating officer today?
Yeah, the reality is it works well for the budget. The level of commitment versus a full-timer is different. It's more attractive. And it flexes, right? As you're going through tranches, just to be fair, and I'm sure we all have different levels, right? But I know a firm that's under $1 million revenue, there's only certain fractionals they can have and only certain things they need. They don't need the whole kitchen of C-suite, right? If they're above 100 and they're going to, or $1 million and going up to the 5 million mark, that's a whole different level of C-suiters. So to be fair, you can flex in and out with the fractionals of who's on the team.
Let's talk about that from an economics perspective, Damian. Jen touched on it, but how should firms think about economics of hiring versus outsourcing executive roles?
It's more art than the science, right? Especially with, we started the call with, the explosion of participants into this market, right? But if you have the back of the napkin, it oftentimes a true qualified, experienced fractional typically can come in anywhere from 10 to 25% of the cost of what a full-time executive would cost in that role, right? And just to piggyback off of some of the comments that Jen had made, I think that this explosion is really just the beginning of results of education in this space, right? Advisors with the resources that are being pumped in, so is education, and advisors are becoming smarter and becoming more aware of what's out there. And they are able to shop around, right? And back when I launched Compass, I was really, for a period of time, the only game in town, which was amazing. But it was basically limited to whoever I got in front of, right? Now I spoke with A, B, and C. We want to get you heard your name throughout the industry. Would love to get your thoughts on it. So I think it's actually, I will always say, competition breeds just better quality output, more value for the clients, a better service model. And I think that even though it might sound nice to be the only game in town. It doesn't keep you sharp in some ways, right? And I think that this environment that we're in is just benefiting everyone, both the service and strategic partners, and certainly the advisors who can now price shop, they can service shop, and make sure that they're getting the right fit for their specific need, and at a fraction of the cost.
Yeah, a fraction of the cost, and none of the long-term commitment and the costs ancillary to the hiring of an employee, right? There's,
like I spoke about earlier, no equipment, no payroll taxes, no healthcare, no
exactly.
workers' compensation insurance, none of that, right? And so it is that one line on the P&L, as opposed to a new employee that there's the one big line and then all the ghost lines that go up because of their presence.
Yeah.
I think there are other two components too that we can address. One is just working remote. We're all remote providers, and I think the whole idea of working remote 5, 10 years ago was much less impactful than it is today. Working remote today is very common. I know, speaking for myself, when we were talking to prospective clients in 2019, and you would talk about doing a Zoom call, people were unfamiliar with the technology. They weren't using it as much. It was uncomfortable. How does this engagement work? After COVID, everybody was on Zoom all the time. Working remote now makes a ton of sense. I think that ability for us to support people virtually has helped our growth as well, as is the fact that we're all individual business owners ourselves. And I think that puts us in a unique seat that we can talk very frankly and openly to the owners of these businesses. And I know when I'm at a conference and I'm talking to a business owner that's also maybe a client, we can have different conversations. I can be the OCIO, but I can also wear the hat of a fellow business owner and talk about some of the challenges that we're all facing regardless. And being able to share and support this community that we have here today, the four of us and other fractional providers, I think, again, it's just another value add that we can bring. If you have somebody in-house that's just in-house and not really getting out to the community, may not experience.
Yeah,
I want to piggyback on Eric and Damian of employees are not going to tell you what you don't want to hear.
True.
And they need support too. And as you scale, they need upskilling. And I'm just going to put it out there very unmodestly. We all have a little bit of years of experience as fractionals. So we're not just there to help build strategy and say what needs to be said, but we are leading examples for the younger, less experienced that want to grow into our roles. And I think that's very powerful. And I think the new set of owners that are out there, they're more open to saying, I don't know everything. I'm not going to bootstrap this as badly as the older owners. And I've been around long enough to see the older and the younger generations. They're more willing to say, I'll share the strategy space with a fractional and outside strategist. I'm okay with that.
And along the lines of experience, Jen, we all work with other firms too, right? So the issues and problems that a firm may be having when we walk through the door the first day, we've dealt with but a lot of times to be able to bring some. Yeah. So I think that's an important part of it too.
And Charlie, just one last comment. I'll make it quick. I promise. I know. Is when you bring on an in-house executive, you are limited to that in-house executive's experience and skill set.
That's it.
So you could bring on a CFO, but that CFO might not have any experience in tax.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to have to bring on tax resources and pay for tax resources. Whereas with a fractional, the right fractional, they probably there's a partner at that firm that is a tax expert, and that's looped into the engagement, right? And then I'm sure the same can go for all four of us on this call, right? Where the breadth of skills that you can gain and knowledge from a collective of individuals with a fractional firm, as opposed to just one individual, will almost always be greater than whatever that one individual. Not all, right? But there's certainly some amazing practitioners out there. But it gives you such a higher quality and a much bigger breadth of knowledge to be able to utilize for, again, that same pretty small percentage of what an in-house would cost.
Yeah, and it leaves room on the budget for the things you don't know as an executive, like adding that tax person or that other hire that you didn't see coming. You got to leave yourself some room there.
Yeah. Cool. We're going to close on a final point, and then after we're done here, I want you guys to put your scheduling link in the chat. I don't know if anybody else brought one, but I brought a QR code that's, we've got a resource. Seems like the hot item right now is how do I make my website or how do I make my digital presence have AI suggest me? How do I get found in chat and Claude, right? So we've got a guide for that I'll share in a moment. So, Jen, let's start with you and we'll close it down here, but along the line of practical advice, right? What's the first operational improvement you recommend to most growing firms?
I'm always going to say the same thing. Clarify your roles and responsibilities. The minute you do that, you're going to know your gaps and where you fill them with fractionals and other people.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's awesome.
And give yourself credit for everything you're doing that maybe you shouldn't be.
Yeah. Yeah. Eric, similar question, pretty much the same question. How do firms determine whether outsourcing investments is the right fit for them?
Yeah, it's just really a question of what they're looking to accomplish. If they're looking for that structure, the discipline, the support to go outside of what they're doing today and saying, okay, do I have the time to spend on all of the things I'm doing or the things I should be doing, but I'm not? Do I have the right people? Do I have the right resources? Do I have the time to do it all in-house? And if you don't, let's have a conversation.
Yeah. Awesome. And then Damian, similar closing question, but what are the first financial metrics advisory firms should truly understand?
At the end of the day, I think it's as simple as profitability. I think a lot of advisors tend to view their practice the same way a pizzeria does, right? Money in, money out, which tells some of the story, but not everything, right? And being able to understand the full scope of what your firm is actually doing in terms of profit and how that affects your ability to make decisions and how that affects your valuation. And you're building this amazing asset. The least you can do is maximize the value of it. If not for yourself, for your family, for whomever you're building this for. So making sure that you have a strong handle on how the baseline, is your firm profitable or not? And then to what degree, and knowing how to build upon that single KPI, I think it's just the right first starting point.
Love it. Answering a couple of comments here. We're all good there. So Jen, why don't you, best way to get in touch with you? And then perhaps just drop it in the chat.
Yeah, I'll just drop it in the chat. It's our website.
Yeah, cool. And then Eric, I saw you did it, but you dropped it to hosts and panelists. So you know to hit that
there we
drop
go.
down arrow and hit everyone.
Thank you. Missed that.
Yeah, you got it. There you go. Connor, our pleasure. Thank you, man, for the comments. We got Eric in there and Jen we got in there. Damien dropped yours already. Very good.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing that. Let me share this QR code real quick. So yeah, this is this comes up with just about everybody I talk to. How do I get found and with chat and GPT, with chat and Claude? So understand that SEO has changed. Google's going to tell you it hasn't changed a whole lot, and that's true. The relevancy is still the most important. But think about the way that people use Google to search for things, keyword, and how they interact with AI, right? With a lot of more human Q&A. So the biggest tip I can give on this is to start to structure your content in FAQ type format, right? Instead of the headline, pose it as a question and provide a solution to that question. Also get narrow, right? AI is typically not going to recommend a general practitioner. They're recommending a more narrow niche typically, so get narrow on who it is you're speaking to. But if you scan this QR code, we've got a checklist and 5 points to hit on your website. Anyway, yeah, hit that QR code and download that guide. You guys, this is awesome. I appreciate not only the friendship I have with the three of you, but the resource that you bring to the firms that we represent when that's needed for them, right? So it's really great to have experts like yourselves in my back pocket. And I look forward to, and really we could probably do a webinar on each one of these topics. So thank the three of you for taking your time and your expertise, bring it to the audience, and for everybody who showed up initially and stuck around for the conversation. We appreciate it. Your time is super valuable, and it's good to have you here. So if you've got any questions, reach out to Damian, Jen, Eric. They're great resources for you.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you so much for setting this up.
Yeah, no, it's really awesome. I'm really happy to be able to get the four of us together, and you guys have so much wisdom and so much experience to share. So it's great. Yeah.
As do you. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you. So we'll get a recording out hopefully tomorrow. Sometimes it takes 48 hours, but usually it's the next day. And thank you all again for taking your time. Appreciate it.